Oh, yeah, I didn't realize I muted that, my bad. So how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. How was your week? How's your week?
I'm fine. It's good. Introduction for the show?
I don't really plan on doing that. I just figured start speaking to people. Yeah, I'm not expecting any views or anything. It's just something I'm doing for fun.
Okay. Yeah, I've done a variety of interviews, so they've all had different types of things like that.
I only saw the one. Forgot his name, but he was a deist, I think. Forgot his name.
Exactly. Yeah, most far. So, but I was interviewed on national Swedish TV. I'm located in Sweden. I've been on national Swedish TV to discuss politics and things like that from an American perspective. So that's kind of, I guess, my claim to fame in Sweden right now.
Oh, okay. So when did you start Republican Atheists?
I started in 2017, and I think I started it because Trump, he had won the election, and I just saw a lot of change in the party, and I thought, you know, I would like to see more non-religious presence or atheist presence in the Republican. And so I launched Republican Atheist, and it's fun.
Okay. Yeah, like the Republican population for atheists is at 15% last time I checked. So they've always been a minority. Every one of my family's Republican, as far as I know. But my parents aren't atheists, so my brother is Republican by default. Not exactly a conservative, but he does tend to lean Republican nowadays because he doesn't like the far left wokeness. Just gone so common.
Yeah, I grew up in a kind of old, but not a strict conservative religious household. And so I've been telling the public for a while now that I grew up in what I call a secular Christian household, because that there's a God, and you know, my family went to church occasionally when I was young, but we weren't a super religious family. We actually never prayed as a family. And so I say my household was secular because we didn't really do anything religious. We church, but we, you know, I watched MTV. We had cable TV. I listened to whatever was on the radio. My parents never guilt tripped me over anything, but and so you know, I was just never really religious. Atheist. I was kind of atheist as a child because we just religion was not really a value in our household. And so when I got into high school, I became a bit more religious, common with people, because they tend to be invited to youth group and things like that. So I actually was a bit more religious when I was in high school, from being invited from atheist at 18 for personal reasons. So I've never been like a hardcore atheist or a hardcore Christian. And I kind of always viewed myself in between both two.
Okay. Yeah, my household's somewhat similar because we were always secular. I didn't even know my parents were Muslim until I was like 12. I didn't even know what that meant at the time.
Your parents are Muslim?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. You didn't know?
Yeah, because we never talked about religion at all. I just was used to believing that God existed and that was it. I don't really remember what exactly I believed. I don't think I knew much about Jesus. I remember after I found out my parents were Muslim, I just started identifying as Muslim for about 2 years. Uh, I really just don't remember what I knew about the religion, because I just never thought about religion at all. The only I remember I joked about it when a friend of mine I just made who was a Christian. He was just wondering, oh, what's your religion? And then I told him, oh, I'm a Muslim, and then he pretended to get offended, and he was like, no, I'm just kidding, I have some Muslim friends too. And I made a joke about when I die, I'm gonna get my 72 virgins. Yeah, besides that, I think that's all I knew. But I know that's not the Quran, but that's all I remember knowing.
Yeah, I think that looks kind of similar in my household. I mean, I knew that my the one who was Christian, but my dad, he would stay home on Sundays whenever we went to church. He never went to church with us, and he never thought my dad was an atheist. It was something. Recently he started talking about spirituality and his own form of beliefs. So yeah, uh, division in my household, also with my parents. And my mom she was never super religious. And I think that's what is becoming more common with young people. And obviously, survey after survey is saying the US is becoming more secular with every generation.
Mhm.
People are out of touch going to church, and like my family, we didn't read the Bible, we didn't pray, and as time goes on, I think increasing numbers of young people, they don't know what a scripture is. Republican Party's main Twitter account recently, and they posted a scripture, and I thought, increasing numbers of young people don't even know what that is.
Mhm.
Bible is. I am finding more secular people from the Republican Party speaking out as time goes on.
Yeah, I remember when I found out about Atheists for Liberty, and Thomas mentioned, I think he debuted in CPAC. He mentioned like large number of these anti-woke people he met were mostly atheists. Okay, didn't you mention something about Atheists for Liberty not bringing up Republican atheists on Twitter recently?
Not what?
Didn't you mention something about Atheists for Liberty not mentioning Republican atheists?
Yeah, I before he launched Atheists for Liberty, and I find them a little strange. I think I'm glad that they exist because they do showcase that there are who are not on board with the left-leaning ideology and agenda. So interesting atheists in terms of sharing Republican atheists with the public. And so, yeah, anyone who supports Atheists for Liberty, I would say that because I kind of question why they don't poke the bear a little bit more on that topic.
Mhm. Yeah, I think they're mostly just focusing on just secularism and free speech. It's kind of the vibe I get from them, especially with like all the guests he has. They're always from different political perspectives.
Well, they are a nonprofit, a 501c3, and so a requirement of a nonprofit, a political party or candidates. And so I understand having, you can't go around and openly tell people to support a group or a group affiliated with a political party. But yeah, Republican atheists, it's totally fine to mention an organization and to just mention there is an organization called There's an organization called Secular Democrats, and it's totally fine to mention political organizations just for.
Well, I know they mentioned meeting one of your guys at CPAC 2020, 2021, both times. Aside from that, I didn't see anything else on Twitter.
I'm sorry, you're kind of choppy. What did you say again?
Uh, I know Atheists for Liberty's Twitter account did mention meeting a member from Republican Atheists at CPAC 2020 and CPAC 2021. But aside from that, I'm not sure if they've mentioned Republican
Well, I
Atheists.
pressured them a little bit to mention them. And we had mentioned, we ran into Atheists for Liberty at CPAC. And so I had asked them to do the same, just to give a shout out. And so, yeah, I really hope that there can be more mention of Republican atheists. I hear it all the time. It's still very common to this day. People are asking, are there any atheist Republicans? Aren't atheist Republicans an oxymoron? And so, no, it's not an oxymoron. And yes, atheist Republicans are out there. It's just for some reason people, they don't want to mention our organization or mention us for whatever reason. And so, yeah, I say to pressure, give a little shout out to other organizations and let them know, hey, they're speaking up and they have a platform.
Yeah, because Thomas is pretty open about his conservative views. So if they haven't mentioned Republican atheists, I'm not really sure what the reason behind it would be. I'm not sure if it's ever actually really talked about. I know they follow Republican atheists on Twitter too, so they're clearly aware. So I'm not sure what reason would be.
Well, I think there's kind of being atheists, and I think between atheists and even in the conservative atheist arena, and it's to do with it seems how sympathetic a person is towards religion. So as I had mentioned, I grew up in a secular Christian household, so sympathetic towards Christianity. I felt that when I did go to church, I learned some good lessons from the church, and I really appreciate that. I had friends. I became atheist. It wasn't like I just dropped Christianity altogether. Actually at the beginning when I became atheist, I thought, oh, I'm atheist now. I actually think I was a little brainwashed, like, oh, I'm an atheist now, I have to drop everything about religion and Christianity. And I even thought maybe I need to cut ties with my family. People, atheists tend to think if they have religious family. But as time has gone on, I have said I actually was going to church during high school, many things from the church at that time. And I listened to Christian music. I still listen to some of that music to this day. I really appreciate it. Full of sympathy, I would say, for Christianity, to the point that I've even called myself a Christian atheist sometimes, because I feel like I'm a hybrid of the two, which is not a new concept, around for a while, the idea of it. And I feel like with some atheists, there's this, some don't want to have any affiliation with religion. And so there is some conflict, I feel, that some atheists who are activists, they don't appreciate about other atheists having sympathy towards religion.
I don't think that's the reason behind AFL though, because we do have some Christians that are members. There's this one guy, Stephen, who's also in New York, along with Thomas. His helped campaign for AFL. His Catholic is pretty open about that too. And Thomas has mentioned he has praised Douglas Murray, and he has mentioned he wanted him on the advisory board too. And Douglas Murray's pretty open about his pro-Christian views.
Mm-hmm. Well, Douglas Murray is a big name.
Yeah.
Popular. Amen. And I know there's also some conflict in humanism in terms of, some atheists are really into humanism. Mm. I'm not a big fan of humanism. And I also find that there's some conflict there when it comes to humanism. And yeah, anyway, it's interesting and have different of religion and topics like humanism and things like that.
I'm not sure if I would fall under the humanist category. they do seem to have an obsession with equality, and I'm not fond of the word. You can blame Friedrich Nietzsche for that.
I haven't been a fan of humanism from what I've read about it, about the recent history of humanism. I'm not an expert. If you read into the and some of the people, the big names who have been involved with humanism, I've never been a fan of. So sometimes there's some conflict there with the humanist ideology.
I remember listening to Michael Shermer on his podcast. I think he was talking with Dave Rubin. I think that's who it was, and he was talking about how like some of these like cultish organizations like Objectivism and Atheism Plus, and then he also mentioned like secular humanism. How you have to have like all these values, but he agrees with like most of what they say, but that's not good enough. And even if you agree with secular humanism on most of it, you're still not a secular humanist because you don't agree with them on everything. So like that's a fair criticism, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have received many comments from others, and they'll say, "Oh, you're not a humanist." Then, like for me, I said I never said I was a humanist, and I've met a lot of people who are atheists who they have this assumption that an atheist is automatically a humanist. And when I first heard the term humanist, maybe I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago, I just assumed it was a general term of caring for humanity. I had no actually a doctrine involved history with manifestos and authors and contributors to determine. It's an interesting topic, but yeah, there's atheists who think an atheist is automatically a humanist, and I find that to be absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why. Yeah, I think no, a person is a humanist if they say they're a humanist. An atheist is simply lacking belief in a higher spirit. That's it. It's not.
Yeah, I know A.C. Grayling. I think that's how I pronounce his name. He wrote his own book on humanism called The Good Book. I know he's friendly with Richard Dawkins. I have that book. I haven't read it yet. That's probably the closest I'll get to actively studying humanism. But I am wondering if most people will agree with him on that, or if it's going to be one of those interpretation type books. But he was as you remember about Dawkins, he lost his Humanist of the Year award from 1996 from the AHA for his tweet on transgenders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
the American Humanist Association.
Yeah, a lot of atheists came out as a forum, like Steven Pinker and Michael Nugent, who do fall under the humanist category. And then we have people like Matt Dillahunty, who just got on his ass over it. Started bitching about Sam Harris defending him. Yeah, that Matt Dillahunty seems to have just gone really downhill over the years.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Association taking that award away, because I thought, well, why don't you look at the background of many of the other people you've given awards? They have questionable background. Eugenics. And, I would say many of the noted humanists were inhumane in many ways. I don't have specific details off the top of my head right now. To the founder of Planned Parenthood, or Margaret Sanger, she has an award. Very if you're going to take an award away, why not look at all of your recipients? Why not look at your whole at the history of the people involved with UK? There's a lot of outspoken humanists in England who have, they have had a history with eugenics. So, I say this because I speak to humanists, and I feel sometimes they put themselves on this pedestal. Like, we're so perfect. We have this perfect ideology. We're so smart. Have you and contributed to the manifestos? It's a bit bizarre, in my opinion.
Wait, did you ask a question for a second? Because it cut off.
No,
Oh, okay, because I thought I heard have you and then it cut off.
I ask questions to people who are
okay.
humanists and act like like they're so great because they're.
Yeah.
Sometimes, have you looked into the history of humanism? A lot of them haven't. So yeah, interesting topic. And I don't really follow many atheists. I follow people mostly if I just agree with their overall ideologies. I like Heather McDonald quite a bit, who is she calls her, I think she's very smart with a lot of her analysis that she does, and really impressive. So many media outlets. Definitely a person who deserves more recognition, in my opinion, in the atheist arena. From the atheist, I think it's called the Atheist Conservative. She has such an impressive background, amazing. I actually published some pictures under Republican exclusive, old now, and I hope more information gets published about her. But she's been to war zones. She has researched terrorism groups. She started an organization to investigate terrorism abroad. Amazing woman.
Yeah, has she been active on her blogs recently?
Her blog, but she does have a forum because she exited Facebook, and she's pretty active there, pretty quick to respond, give her.
Yeah, there's also Charles C.W. Cook of the National Review. Yeah, I remember he wrote an article a while ago about how atheism and conservatism is compatible. He's only run the one book so far, Conservatarian Manifesto. Haven't read that yet. There's also Robert M. Price. Have you heard of him?
Who?
Robert M. Price.
Yes, he was the first board member for Republican Atheists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I actually worked with him for a couple years as we developed Republican Atheists, and we got along really well. We saw eye to eye on other atheist organizations, understood I think we understood what we needed to do to move the organization forward and to kind of overcome left-wing ideology that's just consumed atheist organizations and has just given a bad name and rap to atheists. So he's a really smart, a very interesting person with how he thinks and words his opinions.
I'm a big fan. I got into H.P. Lovecraft when I was 16, and him and S.C. Joshi were those big scholars. And then I found out how many people were influenced by Lovecraft, like Neil Gaiman and Stephen King and Guillermo del Toro. And I'm watching that documentary about Lovecraft, and Price was one of the speakers. And I had to Google him, and I had to look up his theological views. He's mostly just known for his Christ mythicism. I thought that was really interesting.
Read so much about Christ's background. It just, I came across him. When I first launched Republican Atheists, I searched atheist organizations, emailing different atheist bloggers, and said, hey, I'm starting this organization, Republican Atheist. Do you know anyone who would be interested in joining or, help? And I came across Robert, and I emailed him. Didn't really know who he was at the time, and he responded back positively, and he said, oh, it's so great to hear about this organization. And then I started gradually learning about his background, though I haven't read his books. But I met him at his home in North Carolina, and we generally talked more about politics. So I'm not really into sci-fi books and things like that.
Okay.
He is the political side. We saw eye to eye on a lot of things, and he had a background too with the atheist community. So yeah, it was interesting to get to know him.
Yeah, I feel like just the Lovecraft fans, a lot like him, they're just the best way to know who's more tolerant. Because it just seems like everybody who's into Lovecraft, they're either if they're just shaming him for his views at the time because he was anti-Semitic or racist, yeah, they just always seem to poison his work. But then you got like the people like Price and that YouTuber Arkham Reporter and Dave Martell from his archives, who just defend his work because and his character because he was a product of his time and his work was just so important. It just seems like everybody I know who actually likes H.P. Lovecraft just seems to be the more tolerant one, the more tolerant, the most tolerant groups.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so with Republican atheists, Robert Price gradually just started making connections across the United States, mostly through Facebook, and a lot of people became interested in the organization, and now the organization, from my perspective, is doing what I intended it to do, which is to simply have a platform for awareness for atheist Republicans, storming into Republican meetings and say, you have to listen to us. We are atheists and all. I wanted to build awareness that there are atheist Republicans, and I did this most. So going back, and I was able to register to vote. I knew right off the bat when I was 18 and I looked at the platforms of the political parties, I knew off the bat I was not a Democrat. Agree with their platform. But at the same time, I viewed the Republican Party as the religious party. I thought it was a party that I was not going to be with because I considered it more religious. But I think back to when I was 18, if I was aware of an organization like Republican Atheists, if I was aware of Republicans, maybe I probably would have registered at 18. But instead, I went as I didn't register to vote I didn't register to vote until I was in my late 20s. And so that's kind of my goal that was my goal with Republican Atheists, was to just reach out to the younger generations who feel a little disenfranchised with the religious, the religious segment of the Republican Party, and for them to know that, that's a part of the Republican Party, but you can also be Republican and secular, and you're not alone.
Like in high school for me, there was a few atheists I had met, but it was kind of funny. It just seemed like half of them were on the woke spectrum. The other half were just anti-woke. But like a large majority of my school just seemed pretty leftist and religious.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I didn't know any atheists. I actually didn't even know what an atheist was. I learned about atheists from atheists, and I knew the term because I knew I've heard it spoken negatively, the term atheist. So I read what it was, and it just kind of always stuck in my mind. But I didn't know any atheists when I was younger. I didn't know any atheist speakers. I didn't know atheist organizations. When I became atheist, I was kind of just living my life on my own. I had no idea that there was any atheist activity. And so when I started to hear or observe American atheists, and I started to learn about atheist groups and atheist speakers, I was kind of appalled because it just didn't relate the more left-leaning perspectives and so forth, because I've always been kind of conservative-leaning in my perspective. But so when I agenda from American Atheists and Secular Student Alliance and so forth, I thought, well, I don't relate to that at all.
remember American Atheists back when David Silverman, he was the president, right? Of American Atheists.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, I remember he tried to introduce them to CPAC, so you could get like the more conservative atheists, you know, to be more expressive, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. But they apparently disinvited American atheists. But I think it's kind of funny that it's the opposite now. Just people like Robert and Price just recently Derek Lampert from Myth Vision cut ties with him because some of his political views.
With Robert Price.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't really keep up with many people.
Yeah.
I just was kind of new when I know what CPAC was. I tend to tell people I'm just, and most Americans, they they don't know much about the political conferences or the political parties. Even if I think maybe one issue or a couple issues that are important to them, if even that. And so, I didn't go to school and study political science or anything. I think when Trump ran for office, politics became a bit more trendy with young people.
Yeah.
So, but when I was in high school, like 2006, I would say politics weren't a discussion at all. And so I just didn't know what CPAC was. And it was actually through American Atheists I even learned about CPAC. And Republican Atheist has had members go and show up connections. And so, yeah, being an atheist and conservative, it's not surprising at all anymore. And that's an even bigger pool than atheist Republicans. So right now, that's something I'm really working on. It's just the atheist Republican sector, because that is a real minority.
Yeah, like when Trump won, I was in my freshman year of high school, and just everybody kept talking about it. Everybody kept trying to argue with each other. This one Chaldean guy, so this Albanian guy having a Trump shirt, and he goes, "Are you actually a Trump supporter, bro? I will fight you on this." And then he was just going, "Well, it's better than crooked Hillary." And then I was just that one liberal kid just like laughing at their shit because I always hated Trump back then, but it blew my mind when he won, and I
I think
thought,
it's so funny how politics have become a thing for young people, and I think it's because of Trump was viral. He was just a character. And when I was in high school, it was like George Bush was the president, and I think the politicians at the time were kind of worth to go viral politicians. And so when Trump, God, who is this guy? It just like took over anybody else other than Trump. I don't think politics would have become what it is. Well, because Hillary Clinton, she's, in my opinion, she's old. I call her old money. She's been around. I mean, I was a kid in the 90s, and she was the first lady when Bill Clinton. I remember she ran, and I was just like, not Hillary. The kid, she's been around forever, and chose Trump because he was the only option to defeat Hillary. And yeah, I voted for him. It was a really fun election, 2016, so fun.
I remember rooting against everybody because I was still liberal at that time. I just had like this misanthropic philosophy because I had recently learned that word, and I just thought, maybe it's just best if none of them win. I remember I started supporting Bernie Sanders because of his views on climate change, and that was literally my only reason. I just got into politics. I had no idea how to make decisions. But yeah, I remember when Trump won, I was watching those riots on TV, and I thought it was I thought it was just funny, like these crazy people that you saw that one with that woman just screaming no, like Darth Vader. You know what I'm talking about? Went viral.
Um, I've seen a lot of clips.
Yeah, that was one of them, and I just felt like these people are taking this way too seriously. So I thought like I was actually kind of excited to see how things go. Like this guy's going to be the president of this country. I wanted to see how this would turn out. I was kind of excited.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, obviously vote for Trump. No questions asked there.
And so the video is about to end in about 1 minute. So if you want to keep the conversation going, we'll end it here, and I'll send another link.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.